Thank you for joining our LinkedIn panel discussion today. We are recording the session just to let you all know. If you could all please stay on mute, and if you have questions, please insert them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end of this panel. So I'll just start off by introducing myself a little bit. I'm Anzuyan, but I also go by Connie. I'm currently a senior majoring in marketing at UConn. And right now I'm interning at Advanced CT and working on this CampusCT initiative. And I put together this LinkedIn panel discussion with the other intern, Mo, who will introduce himself in a second. And basically CampusCT acts as a resource for Connecticut college students to connect them with Connecticut employers. And currently we have an app that offers you tips, tricks, career exploration opportunities, job opportunities. So you can find everything on the app, which I will send a link in the chat right now to our website where you can be directed to that app. So Mo, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Connie. Hi, everybody. My name is Mahesh Ramdahal, or most people call me Mo. Also a senior at UConn. I'll be done in December, majoring in marketing. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to our speakers for taking time out of your day to join us in this info session. So yeah, let's get things started.
Awesome. So we'll start with Kelly, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Connie and Mo. I'm so glad two of my students are participating in this. I'm Kelly Kennedy. I'm the Director of Transformative Learning at the UConn School of Business. I'm primarily located at the Storrs campus. However, I handle all the career education for all four of our campuses for business school students. And I teach career education, which I have done for almost 20 years now. So I'm happy to be part of this discussion.
And Kate, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Kate Darcy Hohenthal from the University of Hartford. I work in the career office full-time. My area of expertise is experiential learning, and I'm also an adjunct professor of ethics. And for my course, for the gratitude component, we build LinkedIn right in there. So we get using LinkedIn throughout our course. So great to be here.
Awesome. And Garrick?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, first of all. I am also at the University of Hartford's Barney School of Business. I finished my undergrad last year in accounting and risk management and insurance. Right now, I'm a grad student at Barney, doing a dual master's in MBA with an accounting concentration, also a master's of science in business analytics. I also work with Dr. Hohenthal at the Career Studio as a graduate assistant. So I've been working with students to help them with the resumes, LinkedIn, work with the backside and back end of Handshake from the school as well. So really excited to go, kind of lead this session with these questions too.
Awesome. Thank you so much for everyone for introducing themselves. So this conversation is, more of a conversation today. So I just want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable sharing all their knowledge they have about LinkedIn. But first, we're going to get right into what is LinkedIn? What is it meant to be? Whatever you guys would like to share.
I guess I could jump right in, right? Okay, so LinkedIn, we obviously know is a tool. I think what it's meant to be is not everything. It's meant to be part of a job search portfolio. So it's meant to be a communication tool, a research tool, an opportunity to connect. All of those things are super important.
And I'd just like to add that I think of it as like a professional neighborhood. You're building this up now as a student, hopefully as a first year, and then throughout your career, you'll be using this. So you really want to be careful about who's in your network and how that moves forward.
And the way that I would think about LinkedIn is definitely a networking platform where, everyone that you meet professionally, whether it be, professors, whether it be your students you're working with, whether it be any employer, any professionals you meet at any conferences, events, you want to have all those people on there and be connected with them. And I would say for students and freshmen that I, meet and who really have never had any exposure to LinkedIn and don't know anything about it, I would say think about Facebook for professionals, especially because they're both blue too. But I would say definitely you want to use it as a tool. And also, who is LinkedIn for in terms of that? I would say like a lot of times students make the mistake of, oh, it's just for business students. So I would kind of also say it's for anyone and everybody. So you can use it as a networking platform. You don't have to be in the business school or in the engineering school. Anyone can kind of benefit from it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's always a good thing to have, especially because it's readily available, it's free, it's right there. So do you have any ideas of like how to use LinkedIn? What is the most basic way that you can use LinkedIn?
I think, yeah, I'll start out there just in the way we're going about this, sort of adding some tidbits that you can take away with action, which I think is really the most important piece here. I always look at LinkedIn is to see and be seen. So if you're going to look at a virtual resume, which quite frankly, the way the workplace is changing over the next 10 years, we probably will be in a LinkedIn type of format versus a paper resume. So if you're looking for that resume that allows you to sort of very basically put your skills and strengths and talk to all employers, LinkedIn provides you with a little bit more creativity, and we're going to go into that a little bit more to provide a little bit more about your personality, a little bit more about what you're involved in, because I think employers are looking for that. They want to hire the whole self. So this is an opportunity for you to have that resume and the LinkedIn profile as part of a portfolio and a branding for yourself.
And Kelly, I agree. I mean, I think of right now we have that paper resume, and I always say everything on your resume should be on LinkedIn plus more. And
plus more, right? Yep. That added plus, right?
Right. And almost like on a 2D or a 3D, where articles that you have published can be showcased there, video with you doing community service with your club. So yes, I agree. It's robust and dynamic.
Yeah, and it has personality to it. So I although I primarily work with business school students, the creative side of marketing or perhaps other non-business students that have portfolios, that have websites created, those are the spaces where a company or a recruiter or a hiring manager can dig right in and sort of see different dimensions. And I love that statement of the 3D look, because I think that is probably the frustration of a resume, is that it is one-dimensional. So, we are very blessed to have LinkedIn right now, because probably 20 years ago, when you were looking for a job, it was only the resume. So, LinkedIn, looking at it in that dimension, who are you in the workplace? Who are you as an individual? Those things can be showcased on a LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, definitely a continuation of the resume, because resumes usually it gives you a limitation of having it to 1 page or 2 pages, depending on some cases too. But LinkedIn, you can add as much as you want about anything and everyone, pretty much, as long as it's professional and appropriate. That's one element that you want to make sure about that too. And then also about like why use LinkedIn or what is the purpose of it. A lot of times, let's say you want to know something about someone and you want to know their background, you can always my first thought is always to look them up on LinkedIn, whether it be anybody. Let's say I'm taking even a professor next semester, I would even look them up on LinkedIn and see what their background was. Let's say that I meet someone at a event, like I mentioned earlier. And a lot of times when you apply to different internships, different full-time jobs, you would see that the employer viewed your profile if you already had a LinkedIn too. So a lot of times they do want to see you kind of beyond the 1D aspect of it, and see what kind of different extracurriculars you're part of, any kind of events you've visited to. So it's a really good way to kind of get an in-depth view of the individual or the professional, I would say. And it kind of works both ways. It can work from like an employer perspective who's trying to get more insight into your journey as a student. It can also work for you when you want to know about different people that you met. So definitely it's a really good connecting and networking tool. Also, it's a good, I would say, visualization tool. Like we mentioned, the 3D aspect of it. You want to make sure that everything that you've done is pretty much visualized over there. So let's say you got the dean's list, president's list, you got any awards, any scholarships. You want to share all that good stuff and have people celebrate that with you as well. You know, let's say you graduated. That's the stuff that I've definitely used it for myself as well. There's other aspects too, like if you read something interesting, you want to share that article. But again, there's different steps to it too, as you want to kind of go from step one to the last step from the beginner level to the advanced level of using LinkedIn.
Yeah, and I want to speak to the younger students that may have not made a profile as well. A lot of times, you know, I like the way you described it. It is a Facebook for professionals, but the difference is that stalking is welcome. So what you want to look at the fact that if someone looks at your profile, you should consider it a compliment. Or if you're looking at someone's profile, that's also a compliment. So you shouldn't feel fearful of the fact that thinking it like Facebook, that perhaps someone saw that you looked something, whatnot. That's what it's meant for. I mean, as Connie and Mo know, I'm always big fans of looking at other people's profiles, seeing where other people have navigated their career, what have they done, what skills do they have. It really gives someone an inside view past the resume, as we said. So I guess my comment about using it would be not to be fearful as looking at other people's profiles. Definitely not.
And I wanted to just springboard off of Kelly and Garrick's comments. So just a tip. So while we're on this call, if you have your LinkedIn up, and this is for any event, so you're hearing something and you're thinking, wow, that's an interesting point, or I'd like to connect with them. While you're on events, going over to LinkedIn and saying, Kelly, I was just on the LinkedIn 101, and I really liked what you were saying as you send the invitation to connect with them. So that tells Kelly you were on the call, what you heard, and that allows you to then build your network. And if you do that while you're on the call, it's more effective rather than afterwards, because sometimes we forget or we lose the name. So just a tip, building your network when you go to events. If you think it's interesting, send them an invitation while it's in progress.
No, that's definitely a really good, I would say, input, because definitely when I got onto this call, I was like, let me see who all I've already had on LinkedIn. Let me see who else I can just add, because I definitely sent a few LinkedIn invites just now when we started the call too. So definitely you want to do it. It's a really good, I would say, a follow-up tool when you meet people.
Yeah.
Let's say you meet them at a career fair, for example. Even if you're not interested in the company, even if you're not going to pursue them as your internship or a long-term opportunity, it is still good to have these people connected, because people always change jobs. So it's a small world out there, is what I'm going to tell you. So many times I would meet people and I'd be like, oh, I already have you on LinkedIn. Oh, wait, we did meet earlier at that event. So it's a really good follow-up tool.
Yeah.
And on the
I really like what Kate was saying about making sure you're clear about your connections, because I know we're going to go into that a little bit with Connie's questions in a bit. So I do want to address the sort of serial connecting, which happens often when you get sort of on a roll with that, right? So you have to really think about why you're connecting with them. What are you hoping to gain out of this relationship? So I think there's an assumption like if you connect on Facebook, let's be friends. Perhaps on LinkedIn, the connection is more, I was interested in perhaps what you were talking about or what I heard or what could be in the future, as a tool to register with that other person to say, perhaps we can have further conversation. So we're going to get into that. I think, Connie, you want to go down that path, but why don't we go back to where we started with setting up?
Yes. I like that we're getting rid of the taboo-ness of looking at other people's profiles. That's a really good thing.
Yeah.
So a question I have is, how should undergraduates and recent graduates use LinkedIn compared to a working professional? Is there a difference?
Yeah, I would say, in essence, the same. I would probably give the same advice to college students as I would to myself. However, given my experience, I may do a better job in communicating in the messaging. I may have prior experience that would allow me to connect with someone without a message or without some kind of detailed information because of the position that I have. So as a young professional starting out in that internship and full-time role, that first role, those types of things may, I want to say, bring a little apprehension about what you're going to do. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, a little bit of apprehension, because you should think about, as I said, what is the purpose you want to connect with this person? Because making that connection does not ensure a job or an internship or an offer. It doesn't do anything. So all it does is it keeps the conversation going. So I think when you are cautious, it means you're professional. When you're cautious, it means you're thinking about what you're doing and how you're going to be spending your time. So I think the answer is equal, but yet at the same time, when you're a younger professional, thinking about the purpose-driven reason why you're doing this is certainly really, really important.
Mhm.
And I think that when we're connecting with, let's say, professors, or maybe they were guest speakers in your class and they were presenting something, and maybe you don't, maybe you've connected, but you're not ready necessarily to do a post, maybe you're not feeling that confident. So when, and that's a process. So when the professor is posting about some research that they have done, it's a great way to just go on and like it and then comment on it. You know, professor, this is so interesting. You know, it helps you to build up your brand. Just starting out with commenting on what others are doing and watching through your feed what comes in on your landing page. So I think that sometimes starting and watching and seeing what's happening and saying, oh, I like the way that they did that, or they posted that article, maybe I'll do that next. But I find that sometimes students connecting to professors, it immediately differentiates you from everyone else, right? So when that professor, as I was mentioning, experiential learning is my space. And so when a professor maybe doesn't have an internship, but they have a project that came up and they're going to look for a student that is active on LinkedIn, you know, following the professor, commenting, they're following some of the leaders in the industry, that tells them this student is someone that might be really great to help me on my particular project.
That's really good, Kate. I think the engagement is got to be there, but I think having a full profile, or at least a semi-full profile, is also going to be super important, because I think if someone doesn't have a picture, and we're going to get into that again, if someone doesn't have some of those things, the engagement becomes almost like a balloon. It goes down just a little bit of air. Whereas another person who's invested time in the engagement of their own profile can really enhance that connection that you're making. So, you know, I think we're going back to that LinkedIn from a different working professional. It's a never, and just like the resume, it's never finished. So it's not something you do and check the box. It's something that you develop and grow, and with each position. And, you know, I know that Connie and Mo are probably going to add their internship that they're doing with the state of Connecticut, all the details. They're going to write something like, I did a workshop on LinkedIn, or I presented, I planned it, I executed it. So all of those verbs and words are going to be very important to their experience. Maybe even putting a picture of this particular situation right here on Connie's LinkedIn to say, here's something that I did while I was an intern. So what that's going to do is really give the employer, that future employer, the idea that this is what you will do again, which we call behavioral interviewing or behavioral actions. So all of those things are super important.
I definitely agree with Miss Kennedy over there. And about the point that, like, step one is obviously having more or less a complete profile first, and then, start about the second step of like, how do you engage? What are the different steps you want to take about posting, liking, commenting, and so forth. Like she mentioned, what I tell people about resumes too, and I think it goes for LinkedIn, is that you can create a resume / LinkedIn overnight, but you can't really build one. It takes time. You want to start early or start today, and kind of go about it in an orderly fashion, I would say. So definitely agree with that point.
Yeah, no, that's all great. I mean, I'm learning so much myself, and I've been on LinkedIn for so long now. I want to piggyback off of what you guys were saying before about the information that you should include on your LinkedIn page. So when in like a background blurb or the skills that you put, work experience, all of that, what are the things that they should include or maybe should avoid on their LinkedIn page?
Well, I think overarching, I definitely tell students, when we work on our LinkedIn is who is your audience, right? So if we're looking at the people that are on this call, I suspect, I'm not going to, I don't know you all. So I'm going to suspect that your audience might be a future employer. So whatever you're adding should be a reflection of what you think they are looking for. So LinkedIn has a lot of tools lately that can help them get to know you better. So, a lot of students will ask me, should I attach the resume right there as a Word document? No. Because you've just ended the conversation. You're not using the tool appropriately. Should you match what your resume says on LinkedIn? Yes, absolutely. Because if there's discrepancies, that will be certainly noticed by a recruiter. There's also around the picture, there's this new format that says ready to work or ready to open. And again, that's being seen, right? A recruiter in most larger companies has paid for services to grab you based on what you write. So who is your audience? If you are a finance major, you should make sure you have good finance words in there. If you have good strong verbs, if you want to avoid buzzwords like hardworking and go-getter and those types of things, because those are not grabbed by the recruiter and you will not be seen if you would. And I know my colleagues here will talk about other things that are really, really important, but I think I'm thinking about the brand. I'm always thinking about how you present yourself in relation to your audience, in that particular industry. So if it's a creative industry, you be more creative. If it's a finance industry or a MIS or technology, then you need to speak the language of that industry. And that may require you to do a little research. That may require you to take a look at other profiles that perhaps have that background.
Well, and Kelly, I really like the way that you framed that. So when we think about, phrases like hard worker, energetic, right? You want to do show, not necessarily tell, right? So the profile has the opportunity for you to demonstrate the things that you're hoping to. We often look at these basic NACE career competencies: teamwork, communication, cultural sensitivity. You want to demonstrate those. And part of that is, let's say your fraternity, you did a drive for the toys for the Boys and Girls Club, and you're posting that, right? You're working with others on a project that had an element. So you're posting a picture of this. Thank you, Professor Smith. This was a fantastic experience to engage. So you're using LinkedIn for people to read, so that you're not saying, well, I'm intelligent or I am hardworking or whatever those words are. You're showing that with your postings and also your network. And I know Kelly was talking about this before in terms of who you let into your network. They're supporting you, right? They're giving you the thumbs up. They're giving you the clap. Congratulations. You want to create, right, that professional neighborhood that people in there really care about you and you care about others, or at least you have some type of connection to them, so that when you're posting things, people are recognizing that work and the employer can read what's going on. This also gets into the point of, below your picture, your summary statement. That's where you want to make sure you're using words that are communicating where you're going or where you hope to go, right? And I know we're going to talk a little more about that.
Yeah. I think when you think about why are you doing this? Why are you in school right now, right? If you think about the why, the how, the when, right? A lot of students will lead with where they are right now. So we've got Connie, she's a senior at the School of Business. Those things are great things, but they are who she is right now. So thinking about where she's headed and maybe what an employer might be seeking might be the words you want to use in your summary or in your header. There's a header at the top that you might want to use. If you have a name that isn't as easily pronounceable, right? There's an option now to record. That's a beautiful thing for an employer to be able to say your name very well. There is wonderful opportunities for you to fill in spaces. And, as long as it's filled in authentically and you ask yourself the question, so what? What does this mean? Why am I telling you this, the audience? Then if you can answer that with the why, the how, the when, then you're in good space to have, this is a good statement to use. One of the exercises that we use in class is skills. So skills and strengths and values. So I would take some time, if you have a blank profile right now, take some time to think about what your values are, what your skills and strengths are, and what you want to communicate, because it's kind of hard to create a profile from scratch. We know that, right? But it's a lot easier if you sit and do some reflections about what you do well, what you've done in the last couple of years at school. Companies know how old you are and they're looking to see how you've used your time in college. So I think all of those things can be beneficial exercises by just thinking about what skills you bring to the table. And I mean by workplace skills.
I know, like when I was in undergrad, I would focus on that I don't want to just go to class and do good inside the class, but I also want to do good outside the class, right? So you want to also, LinkedIn is a good profile or like a good platform to be able to kind of show that, yes, you didn't only get the good grades, you didn't only learn the stuff that was taught in the class, but you're also good with interpersonal skills, leadership skills. All of these things are really looked for when an employer is looking at your application. They don't want someone who just go to the job, but they want to see a holistic view to your personality, to team building, because at the end of the day, you're going to work in a company. And if you think about college, it's kind of like a simulation in a way of what you're going to be doing out there with, even like, let's say you do deadlines in college, you do submissions, you do, if you can learn and in a short amount of time. So all of these skills like can be transferred. So even the stuff that you do in clubs is really important to be showcased. If you're an athlete, that's a big thing that is also really, I would say, is a commendable thing that people look for when they look at your, I would say, profile. So I'm sure all of you have a lot of great content that you're working on. You just need to identify those, I would say, right keywords. And again, like Ms. Kennedy mentioned, you want to stay away from the fluff words of hardworking, diligent, time conservant. You want to make it more specific and individual to your industry, your occupation, your major, what you want to do, and what you're looking for. Because not everyone is looking for a full-time job. You can mention if you're looking for an internship, what location, what kind of a department. Because with me, I wasn't just an accounting student. I had a really specific path in mind that I wanted to be an accountant, a CPA who was dealing with insurance companies with the use of heavy analytical tools. So that's a really specific way to kind of put as to what you're looking for. If I put that, yes, hardworking MBA graduate looking for an accounting position, that is also not, it's not rejected, but it's not as appealing as seeing like a specific path that, yes, the person has done their research, they know what they're talking about, and we can probably maybe fit them into our organization in some sort of capacity. So I would say it's more about the stuff that you're doing already. Like I mentioned, you already have the content. It's just about how you want to kind of display it to your network or potential network in the future when you connect with employers.
Yeah, and I would add, it's excellent. And I would add that, I think you're dead on in terms of looking at the industry as well, because a perfect example is we have tons of students who are interested in investment banking, right? And, basically, if you don't specialize and really think about what your skills and strengths as it relates to the investment banking world, it's basically going to read like I heart investment banking, which doesn't really tell me anything about who you are. So again, it is a tool of networking, whereas if we all went around the room and talked about our skills and strengths, I mean, it's almost like standing on a balcony and kind of yelling it out. Here's who I am, and which feels a little braggadocious, let's face it, right? But you got to be okay with that. You've got to have that gas pedal and that brake. You've got to say, this is comfortable for me. This isn't comfortable for me. I'm going to stretch myself a little bit. I am going to be a little braggadocious, because I think it's important for you to learn that, because as you grow in your career, you're going to see that the only one that cares about your career is you. So you have to take ownership of that and say, well, who am I and what do I want to present? So I love using the words of the industry, changing that dynamic in that summary statement or in that header can really make a huge difference at a recruiter's grabbing of you or someone else noticing your strengths. Because there's nothing more attractive than someone being themselves and doing it really, really well. So yeah, I mean, those are some things I'm thinking about if I was going to start a brand new LinkedIn profile. It would take some time. Okay.
Yeah. Of
Yeah.
course, like the first step, obviously, like having that complete or more or less complete is what I would say. Profile, kind of putting stuff from your resume about your experiences, updating everything with the right time. I would say the timeline of it as well. But the second step obviously comes down to posting stuff too, which again, for some users, if you've just made your account, you want to focus on refining your account more and then maybe think about posting. But it's a really good tool and it gives you a skill to be able to summarize what you've done. So let's say you've done a project, an internship, and at the end of the day, you're able to post on LinkedIn. It shows how you can reflect on something you've done and put it into the right words and be articulate about it. Mm-hmm. So even that's a good skill set to kind of gain from the whole, I would say, use of LinkedIn as well. And that's what, because to be able to say what you did in the right amount of words is also a skill of itself. And that's something that employers would also be impressed by. Yeah, and that ties upon not doing job descriptions. So one of the common mistakes, I would say, that younger professionals do will tend to put their job descriptions versus their outcomes. So on resumes and LinkedIn, right? So perhaps you were a waitress at a local restaurant. You might say, served clients. That's your job description. You have to tell us what the served clients, how well did you serve clients? What did you do? What went into customer service? Bring out a skill in that statement. So you do have to think about this and you may need some assistance. I know that Advanced Connecticut has some resources for you, so you shouldn't feel that you have to do this alone. I see one of the questions here is, do you have to have a professional photo? Professional in the sense that you have to pay someone to do it? No. But does it need to be professional? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It needs to mirror or reflect the industry you're hoping to get into. So, I'm going to use investment banking again for my finance majors. They need to be in a suit and tie because that reflects where they're headed. Basically, the employer is saying, is this student ready? Is this student enter into the workforce? And so you have to ask yourself that question. Does my profile reflect where I'm headed?
And the other point I wanted to make is that as you complete maybe you're starting the internship, maybe you've completed a project, but you're updating as you go along, and don't say, well, I'll get all of this done at the end of the semester, because there could be opportunities employers are out looking at profiles, they're using keywords like Kelly was talking about to try and find you. So you want to make sure you're updating as you go along.
So ours starts with like building up your profile.
Yeah, definitely.
So after you build up your profile, who should you be connecting with? I know, Kate, you touched upon this, like who you shouldn't be connecting with. Like, what is the etiquette in reaching out to these people?
I mean, I think I have some sort of my personal philosophy of reaching out. I personally believe hitting that connect button means you've shaken hands or talked to the person at some point. So after a speaker comes to campus and you walk down and introduce yourself and maybe have a small conversation and then you follow up with that, or it's an attempt to reach out to a potential alumni. But again, I think sort of that serial connecting does not work well. I know I'm thinking of a search that I was in of a particular position at the university, and an applicant, I believe he had reached out to 25 staff before his interview at the university. Now, I find that to be way too much. That is just over the top. So one of my rules of thumb is, again, what do you hope to get out of this conversation? So in essence, as a young professional, I call it AIR, which is advice, information, and resources. So if you are, that's sort of my acronym that says, look, I'm here just to have a conversation with you, and that would be a reason to connect. So either that future conversation or a current conversation, I would certainly reach out to other peers. I would reach out to former bosses, friends and family. There are layers of people that you might begin to know, and someone you've spoken to would be great for people to connect. And those folks, of course, the friends and families are going to be thinking, you're building your network, which is terrific because you've already done the work of getting credible with them. So I'm sure my colleagues will add to this conversation, but I think that's sort of my rule of thumb when connecting. Now, if you want a message, which is a whole nother different thing, not connecting, but messaging, that's something we can talk about in a second, but I'll let my colleagues here comment.
Well, I think that what I was talking about is the same thing you were talking about, Kelly, in person, but also virtual events,
right,
and connecting to people. That's pretty much the same thing, and that's important. The piece that I wanted to share is, this professional neighborhood that you've created. You can make mistakes and let people in that don't belong there. And I have to say, for myself, I've had to remove 2 people from my network. One person was posting a picture, I believe she was calling it modeling, but it was not to the type of network that I want to have. Many of my students connect with me and alums and along with employers, and I do a lot of connecting directly on LinkedIn. So that's a pretty big thing for me. The other person that I had to remove from my network felt that this was a great place to sell something. And I can't have someone in my network that is imposing like that. So you have to, Kelly's been emphasizing about, before you hit the connect, think it over. But once you do that, that's a commitment. They're now in your network. You really have to keep an eye on what your network is doing, because that saying, you're judged by the company you keep, which we used to talk about in person. That's the same exact thing in the virtual space. And it's your responsibility to really prune it, to remove anybody that is not reflecting your values. So yeah, think before you connect. Yeah. Maybe we can make that a bumper sticker.
Right, that's great.
No, for sure. Just to add to it, I would say, just like in life, you're part of different types of network circles or groups. There would be your peers, classmates, university people that you can definitely add those, professors, people you meet at events, professionals in the industry that you want to be part of. But again, you do want to have a filter on there too as to who you're letting in and who you're connecting with. Like sometimes I have a few people in like the invitation list that I have no connection to as to whatever, and I would not want to connect with them just because like I don't see the purpose of it. Like Ms. Kennedy mentioned earlier, you want to see what's the purpose of it and why you're basically connecting with them. So you want to be able to also reject a few connections. And when it comes to you reaching out to people, I would say you need to kind of be the best judge for that in to a certain extent. Sometimes it is okay to reach out to people that you haven't met in person. For example, in one of my situations, I was applying to this one of the big four accounting firms, and they were looking at my background because it is more extensive and elaborate. They were like, "We really think you would be a good fit for this so and so position." And I was like, I actually don't know much about this position because I've never heard about it, and I applied to a different one. But I was like, let me do my research. As part of my research, I went on LinkedIn, put the company's name, put the position's name, and obviously it showed me people who are currently employed as full-time staff in that position. So that can give you a good essence. So just like viewing their profile can give you good insight. Sometimes if you feel comfortable, if you think it's the right step, you can reach out to them and just in the messaging part of it. I know Ms. Kennedy mentioned we're going to talk about that next. In a professional manner, just reach out with a polite request that if they're available to give you a few insight into the position, maybe if they're available for a Zoom call, because I did that for like a couple of people. Obviously, you don't want to go on a serial connecting streak that adding everybody in that position, but reaching out to a few of them, I would say would be appropriate because I know when I did it, it did benefit me. Obviously, like not everybody that I reached out to, I was able to meet on Zoom or have a conversation with, but some of them, I really had really good conversations and it gave me a really good insight about the position. And I was able to make my decision accordingly after that. So I would say we can give you as many tips. At the end of the day, you're going to be in that, I would say, in your shoes. So you have to be the best judge of what that situation kind of, I would say, includes.
Yeah, and I think I would add to that is that as we're going to talk about what to say in that small 250 word box that doesn't provide you with much space, is yeah, you are actually in a space right now where you do have connections with your alums. So alums can be a great advice, information, and resources person. However, the way you approach it will showcase your credibility. So I know with my own alma mater, I had a young professional reach out to me in the small box and say, she told me how she didn't know me, but we were both alums from Merrimack College, and she thought she'd have a career in higher education. However, she spent most of the time in the small box to ask me very open-ended questions. Hi, how are you? Do you like your job? What can I do better in higher education? I had not met this young lady. Now, certainly I would be love to talk with her. I mean, as my students know, I'm sort of a serial networker. So I would love to talk to you, but you have to be clear with me in that message. What is it you're looking for? So I tend to tell students to keep it to that magical 20 minutes. I'd like to speak with you for an informational meeting, 20 minutes. Advice, information, and resources is what I'm looking for. I've done my research. I have questions prepared. You make it very contained, that it's just the 20 minutes because the person on the other end is busy, and depending upon the generation to which you're speaking to, they may not answer a long email like, do you like your job? That's a big question, right? So you want to save that for the conversation that you might have. So using that small box to reach out to someone, reminding them how you might be connected, and then saying, could I have 20 minutes of your time? It's your convenience. This is what I am intention. What's my intention? People like the directness of that. So I think that surpasses a little bit of maybe the fear you have of reaching out to somebody that you don't know by keeping it very contained to let's say hello, let's take it to the next step. I'm sure Kate agrees with that.
No, that was all great. I mean, the other day I had 500 plus connections on my LinkedIn, and I was like, wow, I'm a LinkedIn expert now, but I have so much to go home and work on.
Excellent.
Before we open up the chat to questions, I just want to tell everybody about CampusCT. So me and Connie are interns at AdvancedCT, and we've been working on this project called CampusCT. And through our app and through our website, we post jobs, social events, career events, and we're just a tool to help you find careers in Connecticut. Where our company AdvancedCT is partnered with so many companies. Like, I didn't know Lego was headquartered in Connecticut. That was a huge surprise to me. So just the link to our website's in the chat. And again, follow us on socials and download our Upper Campus app. We send weekly emails tailored to your interests and your career interests. So yeah, we're just a tool to help you find a career and build a life in Connecticut. So now, I mean, that was all great information. I could listen to you guys talk all day. I'd want to, if anybody has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat.
Yeah. There are so many tools, Mo, that obviously we would take to another workshop, and Kate and I were talking about this yesterday. There are just so many things like groups. And one of the things when you're starting out in your career is that companies are very self-absorbed. So using that tab on the bottom of LinkedIn that allows you to follow people, that can be a really great inspirational thing, not only for companies, but also individuals. So, you know, like following other people that are doing the work that you hope to do someday, or maybe an inspirational leader that you've heard on television, or, you know, if you're hoping to work at Amazon and you follow the president of Amazon, you know what I'm saying? So all of those things are almost like information gathering that actually make you a better applicant. And I have heard from, as I'm sure, you know, Kate has said too, is that I've heard from recruiters that they actually do check to see if their applicants are following them on LinkedIn. So, you know, again, self-absorbed, but the point is that you want to showcase that you're actually walking the talk, that you're saying, yes, I want to work at a toy company like Lego. You know, you've got to be following Lego, you know, and I think that's really important to note. So I think there's a question in there.
So Charles is asking, I was wondering what sets CampusCT apart from Handshake as far as university recruitment jobs / job posting platforms. So I guess this is a question for Mo and I, but basically CampusCT is a little different from Handshake because Handshake is just a job searching platform, but CampusCT connects you with resources to find that job. So there's like employer news, like Connecticut Employer News, like you'll find out about Stanley Black & Decker, like what are they up to? What is Lego up to? You'll also find like tips, tricks. You get to explore your major through the app. So if you download the app, it's kind of like the interface of TikTok where you get to see videos and content. So you kind of get more information out of just the job posting. Hopefully that answers your question. No problem. Mo and I will also drop our emails in the chat if anybody would like to reach out and ask us questions about anything. But feel free to drop any other questions in the chat.
Connie, I just wanted to share from my perspective what you were just saying about CampusCT, AdvancedCT. So one of the things that I really liked when this was rolling out is it provided this opportunity, like you're saying, with tools and networking, but it made me really proud of Connecticut because I had a chance, like Mo was saying, you know, about Legos, and you really get a sense on how robust the industries are here and who's growing and the innovation that's taking place, and how entrepreneurs are being supported to grow here. So, because I know for a lot of my students, that's of interest. They may have one job, but have the side hustle, which is really what they're passionate about for innovation. And does Connecticut help support that? And that's what came across to me.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I think students are under the misunderstanding that they have to know companies. I think that takes an effort. That's a research part of the job search process. Is, you know, we always say that job search is a process, not an event. So you have to really think about the companies that you have around you geographically. I think some of these resources are beautiful to provide students with a better understanding of what is available to them. You know, one of the reasons why I do the job that I do is to make sure that students have all the options. So this is a really great space for the Connecticut college student, as Kate was saying, to really utilize what's available to you. Because, you know, as we've been saying, that building that LinkedIn profile is only one piece of the puzzle for job search.
Definitely.
Yeah. Just want to give another minute to anybody that has any questions about LinkedIn, to our speakers, anything about online networking or building your professional brand. Go ahead and feel free to drop them in the chat.
I would say also, like, in the meantime, like you know, we've talked about LinkedIn has so many different applications and tools. It's gonna be, at the end of the day, as to how you want to use it and leverage the different kind of tools. How I use LinkedIn may be different from like how you're gonna be using it and how Dr. Honthal uses it or anyone else uses it. So I would say you just need to like see the right path for you as to how you want to do it. But as long as you're using it, I know when I was a student, from like a student perspective, when I was an underclassman, I did feel like hesitant or shy to kind of like put myself out there, and you get over it as more you use it. So the more you use it, like I would say, the better you get at it, and like obviously you can see it the way you use it and in your different posts too, as like you've kind of grown, just like any other skill. I would say you would grow from day one to like, it's a continuous thing that you can keep doing, from like a student to a young professional to an experienced professional, and then kind of going further in your career. And I think LinkedIn's here to stay.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Mhm.
I would also add to that, a student that I was working with yesterday a freshman, was very frustrated because he did do a lot of the things we're talking about right now, and he didn't get a lot of response. So he was getting a no response from alums or whatnot. And my reaction to that is there's usually two reasons why someone doesn't respond. Is one, they are way over the top busy, which has nothing to do with you. And the second reason is that you're not clear. You're not clear in what you're asking. So they don't know how to answer. Either they're not the decision maker, or they are the decision maker and they can't step over that line. You know, sometimes an HR or a recruiter cannot step over the line, depending upon their industry, to reach out to you, to be your friend, if you would. Sometimes that isn't the case. So, you know, if you're clear in your communications when reaching out to people, you will get results eventually, but you need to sort of take the personal out of it a little bit and say, oh, well, I guess they didn't want to network with me. That's it. You can't really say, oh, I tried it 10 times and I got 0, or I got 0 response. That's just the way of the world. You have to just keep going. Yeah.
We do have a
Just add on that, Kelly.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add on that, this component that Kelly's talking about being clear, concise, and authentic. So if you are reaching out to someone and you say it's for an informational interview is many times we recommend students reach out to alums or someone that's working in a company, and you say, I'd like to talk to you about what you do during your day. But that's not really why you wanted to talk to them. You're trying to get the internship there and you're trying to leverage it. You have to be authentic about what you're saying. And of course, if the person you're talking to is they're telling you about their day, and then they say, well, what are your interests? Or what are you going to be doing next summer? Then there's a way to flow that, but not kind of have that other reason for why you're reaching out.
Right. And if you have an overarching vision or mission for yourself about networking, because that's, you know, a thing, right? So it's going to be for the rest of your career. So you have to believe that both you and when I see a question there about the LinkedIn of recruiter, again, it depends on the recruiter. It depends on whether a recruiter has been able to make the adjustment to talk to an applicant pool with being fair. because it can be litigious if they're not. And so it's very sort of nerve-wracking to them whether or not to balance that. But an experienced recruiter can clearly make connections with Connie they're working with without making them feel that there's any favoritism. So, when people say reach out to recruiters, I would caution you on that, because I would say it's much better to speak to someone about that advice, information, and resources that is a little bit more open and honest the conversation versus a recruiter that maybe that second connection might be the recruiter. And just by stating your interest in the organization is enough. Sometimes just stating something to a recruiter without expecting a return is going to be enough. Because sometimes, they're not going to email you back, or they're not going to message you back on LinkedIn and go, oh, great, I'm so glad you reached out. They're not. Because that's not part of their job. They're gatekeepers. So you should know that about them. But do some of them do it really well? Yeah, some of them are great at it, but others are not. So you have to make sure, I know that's sort of a vague answer, but you want to make sure that you're just your authentic reason or your intention for the conversation, because it's not the first time they've heard this.
Well, and one quick note I wanted to make, what Charles was talking about, is that if your college is offering resume reviews, many times they are expecting you to ask about internship job opportunities. And that's a great way to be, whether it's virtual or you're in person, it is one-on-one. And that's a really great way to leverage that opportunity right there.
Yeah,
I know we got a second question about like Coursera specializations and how to put that on LinkedIn. If it's appropriate to reflect it under the licenses and certification section, education, or under skills. I've mostly seen a lot of professionals put it under the licenses and certification part of it, because it is a digital certification that you receive for completing a course. But you can definitely elaborate that under your skills section too, as to what kind of skills you got from it. Let's say you do like a beginner certification to Python or something like that. You can definitely put that certification that you get under the license and certification, but you can also elaborate under skills as to what you learned in Python as a language or a programming language.
And a quick note on that, Jeff, when you get your certificate, a lot of times students will show the certificate and so excited, just received this certificate. And along that note, if you're working with your professor on a research in the lab or something new and exciting has come up, take a photo. Thanks, Professor Smith, for facilitating. And that helps to build your brand and help people to understand your interest areas that you have written on your profile, but now they're seeing a picture of it in action. That can be helpful.
I love that, Kate.
Yeah, those are great. So since we're on a crunch for time, only got a minute left, I want to start by saying thank you to our speakers for joining us, for giving us an hour of your day. I mean, I learned so much. I think I have the most generic background section in my LinkedIn profile. It says highly motivated marketing students. So I'm definitely going home and fixing that. But yeah, thank you to our speakers and thank you to everybody that joined. Again, if you have any more questions, please feel free to email me or Connie or look us up on LinkedIn and we'll connect. So yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for having us.